lower, and that's really a class issue, and race does come into play.
This is Let Your Voice Be Heard, right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
For me, we gon' be forever. Rain down on that twice. Rain down on that twice. You know me, I be with whatever.
Good morning and welcome to Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. What's up, guys? Shout out to Cardi B. Okay, I had to play that throwback because she ran down on Nicki Minaj, I think twice. I think she did try to do it twice, too. So shout out to Cardi B, guys. My name is Selena Hill. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Miss Selena Hill. And I'm super excited and pumped to be back. If you guys are regular listeners or followers of Let Your Voice Be Heard, you know that we've been on a 3-week hiatus. Why? Because Jackie had the nerve to get married, and then it was Labor Day, and then something else happened. So we haven't been here for a while, guys. And I really, really missed y'all. Seriously, this is our outlet to talk about everything going on in the world. And without it, when we don't have these conversations, when we're not engaging, what am I supposed to do, right? So, that being said, Let Your Voice Be Heard. This is the place where we talk politics, social issues, and foreign policy and pop culture every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern on WHCR 90.3 FM. We also have Facebook Live. Obviously, shout out to everyone who's listening and watching now. And I have to introduce my very special co-host today because Jackie, Alyssa, and Stanley still aren't here. Guys, they're still on vacation. They needed more than 3 weeks vacation? Who does that, right? So anyway, they left me, but their shoes are being filled. We have Joshua Clennon. And we have Tiffany Brown.
Hello.
And I will give them formal introductions as soon as we kick off the segment, guys. But yeah, so how are you guys feeling this morning?
I'm feeling good. I had my tea this morning. I'm pumped up.
That's all it takes for you to get pumped?
Yup.
Nicki Minaj. Are you Cardi B type pumped, though?
No, I don't know if I'm Cardi B.
You giving out smoke early in the morning?
Seriously,
Cardi a little wild,
Hey, she ran. She's about that life. Cardi B is about that life.
She got that knot on her head, though. You saw that.
She did. And we're going to talk about it. Joshua, for people who don't know and don't follow you, give them more information about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Joshua Clennon. I'm a Harlem native. I'm involved with, Democratic Party. Treasurer of the Black Caucus of Young Democrats of America. I was a delegate for Bernie Sanders in 2016. Locally, I'm on Community Board 10, which represents all of Central Harlem.
Okay. And Tiffany, you haven't been here for a while. Remind everyone of your greatness.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany. I'm from Queens. I work for a labor union. I do their communications and legislative work. I'm also really involved in just Black liberation and power movement. So, yeah, that's the jam.
Absolutely. And, before we came on, we were on Instagram, my personal Instagram, and I was asking you guys, what are you most excited to talk about today?
I want to talk about that op-ed because that is just crazy. The White House is about to implode.
Oh, yeah. Definitely imploding. Absolutely. And Tiffany?
I'm excited to talk about Cardi B and Serena Williams.
And why is that?
I'm excited to talk about Serena Williams because I really identify with this situation as a fellow dark-skinned Black girl who gets upset and everyone feels like she needs to quiet her spirit. And Cardi B, just because the conversation about she shouldn't have ran down on Nicki in front of these white folks and all this stuff, it's get over it.
I'm right there with you. I think Josh may disagree a little bit, maybe?
I definitely disagree.
Do you? Why?
There's people going to say, 1,000 people already said this on social media. There's a time and place for everything. I like the way the Italians used to do it back in the day. They smile in your face, and then they get you back when you least expect it. Just making a fool out of yourself on New York Fashion Week. I mean, you just look crazy.
Sound like we have some Barty haters, but
I mean, I don't really like the way Nicki been moving. Like, she been trying to shade everybody. She been shading Travis Scott and everybody, but
she shaded a baby.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of wild. But
baby.
I mean, but she, her desired intentions, worked. She got underneath Cardi's skin, and you never want to let anybody get under your skin and make you act out of character in public like that.
True. All right, so we're going to have to save it there, but because we want to continue the conversation after the break. And guys, if you want to let your voice be heard, call us up at 212-650-6903. Leave those comments on Facebook Live. Shout out to Kawanza Billy with the heart emoji. Shout out to Roland Michelle who says, welcome back. Have a great show. Thank you. Shout out to you. And guys, and also tweet us at BeHeard_radio. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere because we're going to jump into all those news stories, the ones that Joshua and Tiffany sort of briefed us on. And then we're going to have a full discussion on how Nike is just doing it. Like, I don't know, I'm a fan. I see a lot of people walking around in Nikes, just wearing it very boldly and just saying, you know what, I stand with Nike. Nike stands with Kaep. And there's a message behind it. But then, on the other hand, I hear some people saying things like, Nike's still a big business. It's a corporation. They have bad business practices. Are we being hypocritical on the left? So we have a lot to talk about, right? So don't go anywhere. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard.
Diamonds on my wrist, they tripping.
Give me a little something to remember. Tryna make love in the sprinter. Quit you dropping like Kimber.
And we are back. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Again, my name is Selena Hill on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me at Miss Selena Hill. And if you don't recognize me, yes, it's because I have my summer look going. I have the braids in, but my regular signature hair is coming back soon, guys. I just want to let you know, seriously, I went to this event and I'm running up on people and hugging them and they're like, who are you? Giving me looks and I'm just like, oh my God, it's me, Selena. But I never wear braids. So people, they just didn't respect my agency. I can't switch it up real quick. Apparently not. And we have with us Joshua Clennon. He's a Harlem native. He works in real estate to rehabilitate housing and improve living conditions for residents in Harlem. And he sits on the board of Manhattan Community Board 10, which encompasses Central Harlem. And in 2016, he was a delegate for the Democratic National Convention for the Bernie Sanders campaign. He is also the treasurer of the Black Caucus of Young Democrats of America. Welcome again, Joshua.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And we have Tiffany Brown. She is a legislative and communications associate for a public sector labor union. Tiffany, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, so before we went on break, we were talking about Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, right? We all saw, or at least you should have by now, that viral video of Cardi B running up on Nick, saying things like, come over here, B, basically trying to pop off, saying, if you like another tweet talking about me as a bad mother, it's going to be a problem. And she tried to get physical with Nick, apparently. She threw her shoe at Nicki Minaj. Her dress ripped. She was exposed. And, I mean, it was a lot going on. This was all at New York Fashion Week, 72 hours ago, right? And, I mean, it exploded on Twitter. A lot of people have been talking about it. Some people were like, yeah, Cardi, you about that life. Let's get it. Other people, like Joshua, are saying, not the time and place. Cardi B, you're a multi-millionaire artist and role model. You're 25 years old. You're a wife. You're a mother. Why are you still trying to fight? So, what do you guys thought on that?
Not even just that. It's do you think that she was, there's security everywhere. Them people that get into fights and they know that everybody gonna hold them back and they just making a scene. It felt like that. It's you're not really about to touch this girl. If she really wanted to pop off on her, she should have waited till acted all nice, got close to her, and then just
Well, apparently what happened was while they were actually in the party, Cardi B approached Nick while she was at her table in her entourage and got very aggressive. So she did try to do it before, things blew up. Tiffany?
I think it's unfortunate that you see like two women fighting like this, but I don't think, it should be a true reflection on like her motherhood or being a wife. I think emotions sometimes get the best of people, and when you see an opportunity, you take it sometimes. And I think she saw the opportunity and she took it, because even though security had them, far apart, and I don't think it was any real fight was going to happen. And I heard that the knot actually came from security. It wasn't even from like elbowed. I think, she threw her shoe, which is what Cardi B does. And I think everyone's saying, like, have we watched Love and Hip Hop? Like, the reason why people love Cardi B and why she's in this position is because she was acting this way on Love and Hip Hop. So I think it's almost disingenuous that everyone's acting like she shouldn't act. I was like, that's why she's invited. Those white people know, like, they see why Cardi B is like this. And also, like, Fashion Week wouldn't be nothing without any of these rappers or, quote unquote ghetto folks there, because apparently Fashion Week is not what it was like, a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's a fact. And I just want to add on that I'm not here for those people who are saying we need to act a certain way in front of white people. Like, right. I'm not here trying to live up to white standards like they're so much better and like we're inferior. I'm just not about that. So
I feel that, but at the same time, we got to have standards for ourselves. You can't just go out in public acting a fool everywhere, like,
I'm not going to be fighting.
Like, if you got kids, like, and your kids is looking at that and they seeing how you acting, what are you really teaching your kids?
Tiffany?
Coach is like a baby. Yeah, she'll get her life together. She'll get it right by the time she's 1 or 2. It's all right.
So Coach has time to learn.
Right? Like, she'll write her wrongs.
Little girls that look up to her, that idolize her. And it's like, like, what example are you setting for these kids? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you have a responsibility. It's like Spider-Man, like, with great power comes responsibility. You got all that fame, all that money, and you got a responsibility for, like, the people that you're being a role model for. I mean, she gonna say she's not a role model, but you are in a way.
No, and I totally understand that argument. I just feel like there's a double standard when it comes to men, because I feel like when men have all of this ego and bravado and they go out it because they want to defend, their girlfriend or their wife because, another man tried to like look at them or hit on them, something that's very normal. We don't make those same conclusions. We don't say like, oh my God, your son is looking at you. We sort of commend them like, yeah, so I just feel like there's a little double standard. And speaking of double standards, did you guys see what happened at the U.S. Open? Serena Williams blacked out. Like, she literally got into the face of an official and demanded an apology. So apparently what happened was she called an official a thief. And then I think the coach was like, he gave her a warning. And she was saying things like, as a woman, I've seen male athletes say things much more profound or way more hurtful or horrible, and they don't get those type of repercussions. But because she's a woman and she used the word thief,
Listen, first of all, she got a warning because her coach was making hand signals.
Right, that too.
And I mean, this video of that, it's clear he did it. Well, and he admitted after the match that he did. Well, so she got a warning for that. Then she started wilding out on the umpire, saying that he accused her of cheating and this and that. She was frustrated because she was getting whooped. She was getting killed by Naomi Osaka. Right. And she should have been focused on finish out the match instead of arguing with this dude, and she put herself in a deeper hole.
Whoa.
Listen, this is the double standard. If this was LeBron acting like this in the NBA with the refs, we all be calling him a crybaby. There'd be crybaby memes all over Facebook, Twitter, etc. But because she's a woman, she just had a baby, we sympathetic.
Tiffany is shaking her head no over here. Chime in, sis.
I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree. I do think when the first penalty was handed down to her, they had like a side-by-side video where it didn't even seem like she even acknowledged her coach when he was doing that, and his hands were like significantly low. And what a lot of people were saying was that everyone does coaching on the side. I think Maria Sharapova, who everyone thinks is like, her equal, she gets coached on the sideline all the time. So I think the issue is how they divvy out these penalties. And yeah, I think she was frustrated and she demanded an apology. But I also think, like, if we look at this a little bit more like a bigger picture, like anytime like a woman, especially a black woman, is like standing up for herself or feel like she's wrong, people tell like, oh, just get over it, temper yourself, you have to calm down. And I think Serena was very frustrated because he did kind of, insinuate that she was like cheating in a way. And he also apparently gave a similar penalty to her sister at a previous match. So I do think, she does kind of have a target on her back. And especially when it was like they banning the cat suits, different things like this. I feel like Serena and Venus have been going through different sorts of microaggression and overt racism throughout their whole career in tennis. As soon as they touched the floor and they had those white beads in their heads, which I really didn't like those white beads. I felt like they could have been a different color. But still, I'm just saying, like, I think a lot of times when you see a strong, successful, powerful black woman, a lot of people, are intimidated by that. And I feel like if there was any other athlete, and they showed, I think earlier in that match, there was a clip of how like an umpire like got off his seat and was like encouraging a tennis player to like keep in the fight and like keep going in his match. And it's just like, come on, there's clearly double standards. And even earlier in the U.S. Open, how I think one of the athletes was penalized because she took her shirt off and changed her shirt. So it's just like, we have to really like acknowledge that there is some double standards. Whether she should have handled it that way, that could be debatable, but she did it the way she did, and she's going to have to live with that.
So Marilyn and Ann seem to agree with you, Tiffany. They gave emojis. So thank you guys for chiming in. Josh, what do you have to say to that?
I mean, I agree with most of what you said. I think there's a lot of issues with the Tennis Association and how they treat women and, how they try to dictate what women can wear, etc. But if we just talking about this match, no, I think she should have focused on finishing out the match. She still had a chance to win. She chose to keep arguing with the dude, and she.
But was she standing up for herself? I mean, was she speaking out and representing women?
No, because she's playing against another black woman, and she didn't have those. Why she didn't have those problems? Why she didn't get no penalty?
I don't know. I just feel like she was
playing against. I mean, it's not like she was playing against Maria Sharapova. She was playing against another black woman.
Which people are simply forgetting that she's black, but that's another
conversation. It's not like
But I will say that in the history of tennis, they said no one has ever been handed a penalty in that way, and I feel like that umpire, he did cheapen her win because she was who knows, like Serena could have pulled off the win, but it was clear that she was the better player. But by giving her an additional point in a whole set, that definitely turned the whole tide for Serena.
It did. But I will say it was very impassioned. It was very emotional. I mean, even at the ceremony, everyone was crying. The crowd was booing. Like, they did not want Naomi to win. That crowd was very pro-Serena.
That was terrible.
And I will say that it was a distraction. Like, it took away from Naomi's first win as the first Japanese person to ever win the U.S. Open.
Haitian
and she's black.
Japanese and Haitian.
They're only saying Japanese in the news.
I'm like, this girl's clearly looks black.
She got Japanese citizenship. She has dual Japanese and United States citizenship.
Now it makes sense. But honestly, like when I saw it, I was kind of like, yeah, Serena, because she literally said, like, if I was a man, this wouldn't be happening. And you don't see black women being that affirmative. And when they are, it's always seen as, okay, she's angry, she's frustrated, she's hysterical. And we just don't see, when it happens for a man, it's the best thing. Like, there are a number of male tennis players who are very spirited, and because they act with such aggression and they'll go off and they'll argue, like, people actually want to watch it more. So, I mean, it actually helps the game of tennis because it makes it more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Serena's the reason why we're watching tennis, okay?
I mean, regardless, I was excited about the match because either way, a black woman was going to win.
Right. And that's, that's a great point because, yes, we're still winning in a lot of different sports areas. And we're actually going to talk about more sports later on in the show when we talk about Nike and Kaepernick. But for now, I did also want to touch on that anonymous New York Times op-ed, which was written by a White House official. And now, and if you guys haven't read it yet, it basically criticizes Donald Trump a lot. And it says, like, we as conservatives and Republicans, we realize how immoral and erratic the president is, but what we're doing is we're trying to push our agenda forward. And so Donald Trump is right now calling for the Department of Justice to investigate who wrote this op-ed. I mean, he's not concerned about the foreign country that interrogated and interrupted our democracy when it came to the U.S. election back in 2016. But he's more so concerned about this. And it's like, somebody needs to tell the president that it's not illegal for or unlawful for an employee to write a letter, publish it anonymously in the New York Times, criticizing their boss. Like, it just is what it is. So I want to know, who do you guys think wrote this op-ed?
Well, first, it is kind of illegal because you got an appointment of the president, right? Openly saying, anonymously saying that they're undermining the administration and withholding information from the president, which is basically like treason, right? But it is. That's basically treason, right? That's basically treason, right?
Joshua, whose side are you on?
I'm not. I'm saying the person. That's why the letter in itself is problematic, right? Because even if you're an appointment of the president, if you don't like what the president is doing, you should resign, right? But on the other hand, when you really think about this is a power play. This is a huge power play, and you got to really think about who benefits the most from this.
Who?
Mike Pence.
Yeah.
Mike Pence.
I believe it came from Pence's office as well. Tiffany?
If it's not Mike Pence, I definitely think he put someone up to do it. And I think he was in the Times today saying that, denying all allegations. But, he would, gain the most by the president being impeached and tossed out of office. So.
Yeah.
And it's really brilliant because he's basically what he's done. He's made the president so paranoid. He's isolated himself from all of his, staff and trusted advisor, cabinet members. And now the president, he's going to continue to act probably more erratically. And what's it doing is, after the midterms, if the Democrats do get control of the House and some Republicans feel like, he's really becoming uncontrollable and we can't hold this together anymore, he might very well be impeached.
Yes. He very well might be impeached. Honestly, I kind of feel like the president, no matter like what he's doing, he always wants to focus on like cultural issues and like, trying to demonize the press or demonize football players. And, something like this is right up his alley. He uses it to rally up his base and they win over supporters and tell people like, look at people targeting me. So in the long run, yes, it could hurt Donald Trump. But in the short term, I just think his base is like, that's why everyone's targeting him. So I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm mixed on it. And then like, even like reading it was kind of disheartening for me because it felt like they were saying, we know how horrible he is as a president and as a world leader. And we know that this country is going to pieces, but we're going to still try to push tax reform. So it was,
when I read, I got like, okay, we know that, this dude is crazy, but we need that check. So
right.
We need that check though. So we got to keep him here and try to manage him as best as we can so he doesn't destroy the entire world. But we need that check.
Yeah.
I also think like that person shouldn't get any like real cookies or like applause by like stating what everyone already knew before Donald Trump was even put into office. And I think it's kind of cowardly that you're doing this anonymously because it's just like, what does that mean for us, like, in terms of, like, right. the public? Like, how are you really going to change the tide in that White House? Right. So I think it was more so for that individual person if they ever are outed in the New York Times because it keeps them in the limelight.
Speaking of changing tides, really quickly before we go on break, we know that Brett Kavanaugh, the confirmation hearings that happened last week, completely chaotic. Over 200 people were arrested, including some people I know, like my son, Linda Sarsour, people from the New York Justice League. Really quickly, what was your reactions to like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker just grilling the heck out of Brett Kavanaugh?
I love Kamala Harris. She was really the star of that whole thing. Like the way she made this dude melt was brilliant. I want to say Cory Booker is a joke.
Really?
Let's all talk about how Cory Booker is a complete joke. made up this whole headline grabbing thing about him having confidential documents. Then the documents aren't confidential, and they don't really reveal anything damaging about Kavanaugh at all. Like, he's just a joke. He's focused too much on 2020 instead of doing his job.
I would say there was also another representative. She was from Hawaii who really nailed Kavanaugh on just his pretty much racist and bigotry when it came to deciding on if I think Native folks from Hawaii had any sort of rights to land. I believe I'm remembering this. But in terms of Kamala Harris, I appreciate what she did, but I also think she makes me sigh at her a lot of times because when it comes to prison reform or inmates' rights, she's a little problematic in terms of should inmates be working labor and all that stuff. So I see what she's doing. I think no politician or elected official is going to be necessarily perfect, but I think, at least she's standing up, and it's because of folks like Maxine Waters, Kamala Harris, and even Cory Booker, though it was a little performative, that, we have to call this out. And Kavanaugh is going to be a huge threat to women and people of color and marginalized groups.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we definitely got to call it out. On that note, we do have to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere, but I just want to give a shout out to Drake and Meek Mill, who apparently squashed their beef last night. Yes. Did you guys see that?
Yes,
I mean,
did.
If Drake and Meek Mill can squash their beef, maybe Nicki and Cardi? I don't know.
No, that beef is forever.
That's forever beef? Okay. Don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're talking about Nike. We're talking about Colin Kaepernick, and we're talking about everything going on. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard.
Blow, don't snooze, don't sleep. All I really need is some shoes on my feet. Nikes on my feet, keep my cipher complete. Nikes and the Nikes on my feet, keep my cipher complete.
So that was Mac Miller, Nikes on my feet. R.I.P. to Mac Miller. We know that he overdosed at the age of 26 years old.
Same age as me.
So sad, guys. And if anyone is suffering from any type of depression or mental illness, please seek help. Or don't turn to, lethal or deadly mechanisms, and I'm not saying that's the causes for him, but I do know that he did rap about, he had a lot of dark lyrics and rap that alluded to him, suffering from different things. So, there's always help. That being said, of course, we play Nikes on my feet because everybody is rocking Nikes, the gear, their socks, the shirts. Every time I walk out, I see people with the Just Do It signs. We're all here for it. And why? It's because Nike, a $1 billion athletic appeal company, they marked the 30th anniversary of their Just Do It campaign with a new ad on Labor Day that pictures Colin Kaepernick with the words, "Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." As we remember, Colin Kaepernick is a former NFL quarterback who has not played professional football since he began kneeling during the national anthem in protest of police brutality and racial injustice back in 2016. Now, his Take a Knee protest went on to trigger an outpour of support and a firestorm of backlash from critics like President Donald Trump, who called the protest unpatriotic and disrespectful towards the American flag and the military. Now, rather than remaining neutral in this debate, Nike decided to place Colin Kaepernick at the center of their new major campaign, sparking an emotional fray on social media. Critics were like, "Oh no, I'm not buying Nike anymore. Hashtag Nike boycott. Hashtag just don't." Others went as far as to burn anything that they owned of Nike, to cut it up and to share it and to say hey, I'm not supporting Nike even though you already purchased the item and supported Nike, whatever. And then you even had some people criticizing Nike for being hypocritical, saying yeah, you're all for, being woke to sell merchandise, but the shoes that you're making and you're selling are being manufactured in sweatshops. So, I mean, let's look at the full picture here. So we're going to have an all-encompassing conversation about Nike, this brand, sports, and how polarizing it is, right? It's we can't even wear a clothing brand or watch NFL. It's everything happens to be an issue. So I wanted to start off this conversation by asking you guys, what was your initial reaction to Nike's Just Do It campaign, Tiffany?
I thought it was pretty dope. And I say this because if you look at everyone who wears Nike, everyone who's like, make Nike fly, add that extra drip, is people of color, especially black people. And, we can talk about the other issues when it comes to their business practices and how they produce their materials. That's a valid argument. But I do think it's bold for a company to do this. But I also have to recognize there's a lot of money in being woke now, unfortunately. And it's not always, the first priority for people who are, talking about wokeness and being aware and fighting for social justice is not only always the people that they said they're fighting for. So I think it is valid concerns, but I feel like nothing is ever really like, black and white. There's a lot of gray here. And I do think it's a huge risk for Nike per se to like put Colin Kaepernick, who is a polarizing person right now. But at the end of the day, he's fighting for what he believes in and it's a just and right cause. Like, and anyone who's spinning it as if this is disrespecting the military, I was like, we don't, as a country, as a government, we don't care about our vets. We need to be honest about that because we see a lot of them that are homeless in the subways. We do not care about our vets. And I feel like to even use them as a pawn, I think is disgusting because the way we treat them, like, look what's happening at the VA hospital. If we really cared about our vets, they would not be, going through what they're going through. I feel like those people who are burning their stuff, they should donate it. I feel like I saw a story, I think it was like someone in Rochester, New York, like he was burning his Nikes. He ended up burning down his house.
Yeah, I read that too. So Don Eli chimed in on our Facebook Live. He says, and I may not have time to read the whole comment, but he says, you don't have to protest Nike. I think the better question is, do they support the right purpose or are they just getting profits? We are known to be so commercially minded that we don't see the financial reality of our actions as consumers. Does supporting the company help our community? Give us a place to live, pay us, feed us? That's a brilliant question, Don. I mean, Josh, you can answer that.
That's right. I mean, I think he's 100% correct. I mean, everybody's like, oh, I'm going to go buy 2 pairs of Nike. I was like, what is wrong with people? Like, buy, if you're going to buy go buy some Nike stock because it dipped and get a return on that. We need to stop falling into this consumerism and being so hype about, these corporations don't care about us. This is like a huge market employ. Like, Nike is trying to regain that market share that they've been losing to Adidas. Because Adidas has been doing all these projects for rappers, athletes, etc. They got the Yeezy, they got like Playboy Cardi signed with Adidas. So Nike, how am I going to get my black people back? But we're going to put Colin Kaepernick in our new advertising campaign.
But it's a double-edged sword because we're the first people to protest corporations and companies when they neglect us, when they leave us out of campaigns, when they don't put dark-skinned faces up on billboards. We're the first people like, where's the inclusion? Where's the diversity?
But LeBron has been the face of Nike for forever.
No, but to your point, that for people who are saying, oh, it's all about the profits, don't get caught up in the hype of consumerism. Yeah, but when they were neglecting us opportunities to be in advertisements, we were protesting then. So which one is it?
I mean, I don't agree with that. I mean, what's the big whoop about seeing a black face in an advertisement? That's not gonna pay your rent. That's not gonna give you housing. That's not gonna help you eat.
Tiffany? What's the big deal? So Joshua just said, what's the big deal? Colin Kaepernick is the face of Nike. What's the big deal? What's the big deal, Tiffany?
I think the big deal is because it's Colin Kaepernick and, he is out of a job because he kneeled respectfully on the sidelines and he's been, ostracized and outcast. And also on top of that, he has his whole case going forward with the whole collusion against the NFL about how he was, pretty much, blacklisted from joining any team. So I do think, I get what you're saying, like, Nike's is not going to allow me to eat any better or make me any more money. And how can I say this? I feel like when you live in a society that's all about capitalism and consumerism and not necessarily based off like social justice or like the betterment of people holistically, it's hard to like, try to like pick either side. But as I said, I think it's a very gray area.
Look, this is what I say. I get it. It is a marketing ploy. They are doing this for profits and to increase their bottom line. But the fact of the matter is, what Colin Kaepernick stands for, he stands for equality, racial justice, and that fight. And for Nike to put billions of dollars, their $1 billion company, on the line to say we stand with him, that means something in society. It means that all these protests, all these marches, every time we hit the streets, people are actually watching. And not only are they supporting on social media, they're willing to put money and investment behind it. That's what the big deal is. And on top of that, I just wanted to add, when I first saw it, I thought it was a brilliant business decision. And a recent report from Edison Trends shows that following a brief decline after Nike put out the ad, the shoe giant's online sales increased 31%, which was substantially better than 2017's 17%. So
but I don't agree, because I feel like this is what always happens with like activist movements. Like corporations get involved and use it for their own purposes. I mean, that's why you have a lot of people, even in South America, you have a lot of people who are heads of these corporations who started out as activists against these corporations. Yeah. So, I mean, it's they're just taking a movement and using it, twisting it for their own purpose. And I mean, I'm happy for Colin Kaepernick. He's getting a check. I mean, he deserves a check for what the sacrifices he's made, but does it really further the movement?
Good question. We have a comment coming in from Emanuela. She says, it is important to acknowledge the importance of Nike choosing to back Kaep. It is also important to educate our people about stock, not just lining up to purchase Jordans or Nike. Thank you so much for that comment, Emanuela, on our Facebook Live. We are going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere, guys. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation. And, I know I'm all for Nike now, but there are some things that this company has been doing for decades that is questionable and we need to talk about. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard. And we are back. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Again, my name is Selena Hill. I'm here with my special guests, fill-ins, Tiffany Brown, Joshua Clennon. And we're talking about Nike. We're talking about Kaep. We're talking about this Just Do It movement, because a lot of us are like, yeah, I'm going to go out and buy Nike. Most of us saying sneakers. Some of us saying stocks. And we're all supporting this company. But as I alluded right before we went on break, not everything Nike does is commendable. So Nike has been condemned for exploiting its workers overseas and paying low wages for decades. The United Students Against Sweatshops, which is an organization, they have been ridiculing Nike because of its labor practices, specifically in China and Southeast Asia. Now, the United Students Against Sweatshops tours workers from Nike's factories on college campuses and organizes athletes to demand an end to the sweatshops, or their schools will break ties with the shoe giant. On top of that, women who have worked at Nike have described an eternal sexist atmosphere, and they say working at Nike has been toxic. In fact, back in April, the New York Times published a whole expose on Nike's toxic culture and high-profile executives. And to make matters worse, Nike founder Phil Knight, he underwrites candidates from the very Republican Party that has been demonizing Colin Kaepernick.
That's
Tiffany,
right.
Hold up, Josh, because I know
That's
what you're
right.
going to say. Tiff, you got to chime in. Are we still just doing it? What's up?
Oh, gosh. Lord.
And I want to know from you guys, like, you still supporting Nike?
That's why I keep saying there's nothing in black and white when it comes to a lot of these issues. And I do think it's valid to call out Nike when they are doing wrong. And I say, give them a hand clap when they're doing right. But I think, like I said, it's not black and white. I do think those are valid arguments that's being, waged against Nike. And I don't think we should necessarily just run out and support Nike, because there's other ways that we can support Kaepernick without, necessarily buying Nikes. And, that's just basically going to like a local organization and going out to march. So I do think, while they may have it right in this aspect, we also have to hold them accountable in other areas.
So Joshua's looking at me like he's about to start making his own shoes. I mean, like, if you don't support capitalism and consumerism for reasons like this, I want to know what you go wear.
I'm just saying, like, this is how they fool us every time, right? they try to take they give Kaepernick a couple million. They use his whole image and everything. But at the same time, they're giving money to Republicans to push conservative agendas, right?
I want to say the founder uses his personal money that he gains from Nike to donate to Republicans.
Okay, but this is what they do every single time.
Yeah, sure.
Every single time. I mean, I like Lonzo. I like the Ball family. You know, this is what we need. We need to make our own sneakers. Push our own products. Stop. We just want to be in white spaces so bad instead of making our own stuff. Like, I don't get it.
You know what? You have a point there because we should be supporting our own community, circulating the dollar within our community. I mean, there are a lot of fashion designers. I mean, it's New York Fashion Week, and I had the privilege to go to Harlem Fashion Week just yesterday, and I met a lot of designers of color, and they literally said to me, like, we need to start shopping in our own communities instead of always giving our dollars to corporations and companies who fundamentally don't care about us. Tiffany?
I think that's a perfect and valid statement. I also feel like we have to acknowledge that when it comes to supporting our own, they make it very hard for even our fashion designers and our creators to even have the opportunity and the platform and to, even get access to them. I don't know if you guys remember a couple of weeks with that whole nail salon story. And it was just like, everyone was like, but this is why we need like black-owned nail salons and black, nail techs. And it was like, I was just like Googling online because like my thing is that I really want to support my black women in business. And it's so hard to find that. And it's like we really have to like cultivate that in our own communities from like young, not just when something like this happens, but like, it's okay to like go to school for cosmetology, then open up your own business. It's okay to be a fashion. We really have to like grow and nurture those talents within our community and then really distribute that information out because sometimes it is hard to find.
Absolutely. And I wanted to add, so Nike actually brought advertisement of their Just Do It campaign featuring Kaepernick, during the NFL. So you're like, I don't know if you guys happen to watch the NFL. It kicked off last Thursday, and they brought the ad. That leads me to say, so guys, are you supporting the NFL or are you boycotting? Because Kaepernick stood for, he's actually suing the NFL right now, and he's standing saying we should be able to express ourselves and protest, whether we're at work, on the job, no matter how, no matter what, especially if it's a peaceful protest. And the NFL pushed back. We know that he did not, he is not playing professional football because of those reasons. And now, not only did Nike put Kaepernick at the center of their campaign, but to add salt to the room, they purchased the advertisement during the game. Like, what do you guys think about that?
I thought it was more marketing, but I haven't watched NFL in 2 years.
So you're boycotting?
Yeah, I'm definitely boycotting.
Do you think your boycott makes a difference?
I'm sure it does make a difference because, I used to have I used to get all the guys together to watch NFL. I mean, and I know a lot of people who just don't watch it anymore, and the NFL's ratings have been going down every year. I mean, they're definitely on a decline, and the NBA has just gotten more and more popular internationally. And that's why you've seen the NBA take more like progressive stances on these issues. Like they're not trying to really control what the players do as much as the NFL.
Tiffany, what should the NFL do to regain support in communities of color?
I don't know if I want necessarily the NFL in communities of color. I feel like this is such a dangerous sport. And even before, this whole thing happened with Colin Kaepernick, like you said, you have been seeing a decline in the NFL. But I've been watching like a lot of documentaries just about like football and a lot of like young black youth that really benefit from football just being in their neighborhood because it takes them out of a situation like drugs and gangs and all of that. So I feel like there is value of playing football in terms of like giving an alternative to a dangerous lifestyle. But I don't know if, the NFL can really do anything to help the black community per se, because I feel like they don't respect the black community. If you look at all of the owners, they're all white. It feels very slave-like,
plantation.
It feels very plantation-esque. So I don't know.
I guess on the other hand, they would argue that employing them and giving them multi-million-dollar contracts is helping them directly.
Yeah,
and they're also investing that money back into their communities.
But then they only live like 15, 20 years
Right.
after they retire. They're all dying. They're all getting
At, like, what age?
CTE.
And a lot of them don't even retire with money, honestly.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like what's the average age of a football player to die? Do we know?
I
don't know the exact statistic, but there's been studies that's showing like 95% of players that retire with CTE.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we have another comment coming in on our Facebook Live. Shout out to Priscilla, who says, I just see this as straight up exploitation of black lives. Like Kaep is just being used for the profit of Nike and for Nike to look like a good company. Nike doesn't care about black lives. I'm happy Kaep is getting his bag, but I don't know if Nike is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And then she says, F the NFL. Thank you, Priscilla.
Big facts, Priscilla.
Yeah, I don't know. Now I'm trying to change the tide. Like, dang.
Really, Tiffany? So, well,
The
actually,
truth shall set you free.
Yeah.
I'll put it like this. Everything, like most things in life, is nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
It's not black and white, like you said. There's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad. There's pros and there are cons. And sometimes it takes a long time for us to really reflect and contemplate before we come to a conclusion on where we stand. So no one should feel pressured to go out and buy Nike sneakers and stocks. This is just a dialogue that we're having. This is something that we should be talking about. And we do have to wrap up this conversation. But before we do, I want to get the panel's response on not only how you feel about Nike and if you think you should tell everyone to support it or not, but, the larger issue at hand. How can we support the issues that Kaepernick is spotlighting that now Nike is backing?
I think people need to go out. They need to help elect black candidates. They need to help get Stacey Abrams, Andrew Gilliam, Ben Jealous elected for their governor races. Go out, help those people, support them. Vote. Make sure you're voting for Democrats who really support your causes, not just any Democrat like they tell you. Vote in your primaries.
I would second everything that my colleague just said. And definitely, there's a lot of organizations that exist out there in your communities, whether, it's the Black Youth Project, getting involved in your community boards and really making sure that issues that matter to you matter to everyone in your community, and voting and being vocal and getting out there and marching really does have an impact. And, support progressive black candidates, like you said, especially, women.
Absolutely. And before I give my closing statement, Albert just left a comment on our Facebook Live saying we don't need the NFL if it gives kids false hope. Don't go into a black-white thing, because in New York we give money first to the football teams and high schools before books and supplies. Thank you so much for that, Albert. I just want to end this segment by saying, whether or not you believe Nike is co-opting Kaepernick's stance of resistance, this campaign, it reminds us that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And Barack Obama reminded us of that a few days ago, because when we're not involved civically and, involved in political elections and involved in our local community and involved in the social justice movements that are going on, it affects us. It affects everyone else, and it has a huge impact. So whether or not you like what Nike is doing, I commend them for just bringing this issue to the forefront and getting millions of people to remember why Kaepernick first kneeled on that field. And the reason why was because he was protesting the black and brown bodies that continue to be shot down and murdered without consequences and without accountability. And I'll just end on this, because when I say the word consequences, I always think of something Alyssa says: elections have consequences. And when you don't vote and you don't get involved, we get things like Donald Trump, a clown who is now running a circus in the White House. And that's why it's important for us to pay attention and get involved. And shout out for Nike for facilitating the conversation. On that note, we do have to say goodbye. But continue to listen to WHCR because Gregory Neesmith is coming up with the Underdog Show. Shout out to him. And we have a special treat for you guys next week. God willing, he'll be on Let Your Voice Be Heard, all right? So, guys, and continue to support us on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/BeHeardRadio and give a small donation and support us, then we will continue to support the issues that you care about, all right? So on that note, thank you again. Happy Sunday, and we'll see you next week.